Hey everyone, welcome to the second week of the Parent Resource Group from Awakenings Counseling. I'm Emily Gary. I'm going to be sharing more therapeutic activities that you can do with your kids while under the stay-at-home order. This week's topic is feelings, and more specifically, it is talking about feelings. And this is one of my favorite topics to cover, not just with kids, but also with adults. I work these days with adults. I do couples therapy and sex therapy, and I feel like talking about feelings, is one of the areas where we could all use some improvement. And it's something where if you do get good practice in it as a child, you are better able to do it as an adult. And that leads to you feeling better and having more emotionally healthy relationships. One of the big things that I want to emphasize for today is that some of the activities that we do are going to be ones where we're encouraging kids to talk about times that they have felt certain emotions, and they're probably going to share some negative emotions. And I want to encourage you as their parents to create an open environment for that and not shut down those emotions, even if it's really hard to hear. Something that I see happen, and it's totally natural, is that a kid shares a negative emotion and a parent wants to step in and protect them from that negative emotion or help them to understand what the intention was in whatever situation that was, with the hopes that that changes whatever the emotion is that the child shares that they experienced. And so I just want to say, don't do that. Like, try your best not to do that, and instead just be open to hearing what they have to say. Because that way they're going to feel like they can continue to share those things with you, and they're going to feel like this is a relationship where they can trust that they're going to be heard and that they can continue to come to you in the future to talk about these things. So I'll say it again when we get to some of those activities, but that's just one of the big takeaways that I want you to get from some of this today. Other things to know. So I think that it's important to just up the amount of emotional talk that you have in your relationship with your child so that they're better able to recognize emotions as they come up. So this would mean even just labeling it. Like if your kid is, skipping around and smiling, say, "Oh, look at you, you're skipping, you're smiling. It looks like you're happy." And letting them know what are the things that are indicating to you that your child is feeling a certain way, so that they're able to connect, okay, these are some of the things that happen when I'm feeling this way, so that eventually they're able to recognize that within themselves. So really just emphasizing, being able to label those emotions for them. Also labeling them when you're feeling a certain way. Like if you're feeling aggravated or something and you're saying, I just feel frustrated, and letting them know what it looks like when you feel frustrated. That way they're also better able to recognize that when you're feeling it and when they're feeling it. And again, it ties back to creating that relationship where they feel like you are somebody that they can talk to about those things. So our first activity for today is going to be a feelings chart memory game. And there's lots of different feelings charts that you can download online that show different emotions. I like ones that have both pictures and words, especially because, the hope here is that we're working with kids anywhere from probably 3-ish to 10-ish. And so younger ones might not be able to read yet, whereas older ones might need to work on their reading. And so I'll actually share a link to this emotions chart that I've found. It's a free printable one online. But you want to print out something like this that has different emotion pictures and labels for them. And what I recommend is when you find something like this, obviously, like we're going to be doing a memory card game, so you're going to need to be cutting them. And so as you and your child are cutting them and looking at them, talking about what they are, because kids might not necessarily know what the difference between, feeling nervous versus scared or something like that is. And so even if you need to, consult a dictionary or something like that, or a kid's dictionary to be able to define these words for them, I encourage that you do that and do some education on what are these emotions. Talk about what those faces look like and things like that. And you can even talk about times that you or your child have felt those things. And then that way they have an idea of what these are as they, are creating the cards, and then as you're going through the memory game. And so the idea here is that you take cards like this, I would suggest if you're doing, printer paper like this to do some kind of construction paper back so that they're not able to see through the paper. And then you do your typical memory card game where you cut out matching pairs of them, obviously, and then mix them all up and lay them out, and then flip over one, flip over another until you get matches. And whenever somebody gets a match, you have to act out what that feeling is. So that's why it's really important to, first of all, let them make sure that they know what the definitions of those different feelings are. But that's where the fun comes in, is then, once they get those matches, they get to act it out and show what it looks like to feel those feelings. The goal there is that they're able to recognize what it's like to be experiencing that emotion. Like, obviously, they're not probably going through that emotion at that time, but to at least be in tune with what's going on within them and what might somebody who is confused, somebody who's disgusted, somebody who's angry, somebody who's elated would look and seem like during those times. So that's a really simple one. Like I said, I will share the link so that you have access to that printable one. If you want to do one of your own and just create your own art with it and come up with your own, ideas for words to use and things like that, that would also be a great activity, because that way they're the ones who are, trying to figure out, okay, what would a happy face look like? What would an overwhelmed face look like? All of those. For our next activity, you're going to need some supplies. I recognize that it's not always easy to get the supplies that you need during this time. So be really creative with whatever you have on hand. But you're going to want some kind of ball. If you don't have a ball, you can get some other item that you could toss around. You'll see in a minute in the video that I did with the rest of the team at Awakenings that not everybody had a ball at home, and so people got really creative with what they have, and it was a really fun activity for us. Take your ball or whatever object you're going to use. You are going to be tossing it around, and so make sure it's something that is lightweight enough to throw, isn't going to hurt anybody or anything like that. And you're going to write different emotion words all over the ball. I'd say write at least 5 of them. If you want to write more, that's awesome. You'd have more variety there. If you have a hard time coming up with stuff, you could always go back to that feelings chart that you used in the previous activity and just use the words from there. And the idea here is that you're just playing a game of catch, tossing this around from person to person. And wherever your right hand thumb lands, that's the word that you go with. And you just talk about a time that you felt that feeling. And this is one that I find that kids really like to do, because they do like to talk about things that they've experienced and, share stories about themselves with other people. However, not everybody feels comfortable with that. You do find sometimes kids who, can't think of a time that they felt something, or they don't feel like sharing that. And so you can tell them that instead, if they can't think of a time that they've felt it, to talk about a time that their friend has felt that way, or talk about what would be a situation where they might feel that way. Again, like I said at the beginning of the video, just try to make sure that you're being open to whatever it is that they have to say so that they feel comfortable sharing that. And the game can go on for as long as you want. It doesn't have to be really long. It can be, just toss it a couple of times and things like that. But usually I find that people have a lot of fun doing it, just because it is something where they get to hear stories from other people and talk about themselves. So, to start us off, here's our Awakenings team. We are going to be doing this feelings ball activity together. It is the coronavirus edition, so we've all brought in just items that we can toss. It might not be a ball. It's whatever you've got on hand, so that we're not sending anybody to the store. What we're going to do is you toss it to a person, and when you catch it, you go with whatever feeling is closest to your right hand thumb. So if you're not super close to one, you can go to a different finger, but go to whatever feeling you're closest to, talk about a time that you felt that feeling, and then pass it along to the next person. If you have trouble thinking of a time that you felt that feeling, you can talk about a time that a friend of yours has felt that feeling. So I'll start off by tossing it to myself. The finger, or my right hand thumb, is closest to nervous. A time that I felt nervous was when I was applying for my job here, and I didn't know what was going to happen and if I was going to get the job. And I'm going to toss the ball to Caroline.
Okay, so mine is joy. A time that I felt joy was swinging on the rope swing over the weekend. I'm going to toss it to Erin.
So my thumb landed on overwhelmed. A time where I felt overwhelmed was moving back into my parents' home, overwhelmed with all the noise going around. So I'm gonna pass to Jennifer.
A time that I felt happy was when it stopped raining the other day and we could go outside for a really long walk. I'm going to pass the ball to Devin.
Okay. I got anger, and I felt anger when Matt ate the last ice cream sandwich. I know it. So I'm going to pass it now to Sarai.
Okay. So I got fear. And one time when my daughter came back from riding her bicycle and she was holding her neck like this and I was like she was crying and I was like what's wrong and she had run into a like a gate but made out of just chain, like a big chain gate, and had just like hit it right here as she was riding her bike. And I was just so, it was so red that it I was like, I don't know if I should take you to the hospital. Like, what if you like severed something in there? Because it maybe you're internally bleeding. I don't know. I was just scared. And yes. And I'm gonna pass it to Kirsten.
So I got proud. A time that I was proud was when I climbed my first 5'9". I started rock climbing a little while ago and it was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. So when I was able to do that, I was super proud. And I'm going to toss to Lori.
So I have lonely, and I have felt through this COVID virus lonely for my friends because all the things that I normally do, I go on walks with my girlfriends, I meet up with a couple groups, and we have a Friday night social. And I haven't been able to do any of them because we've all supposed to have been separated and do social distancing. So as an extrovert, I have felt lonely without the hugs from my friends and without seeing my kids, without being able to see all the people that I love. Oh, and I'm going to toss to Dr. Smith.
Okay, I got surprised. A time that I felt really surprised was when, for the millionth time, I asked my partner if we could get a dog. And then once finally he said yes. I did not see the yes coming, and I was very surprised by the yes. And I will toss to Brandy.
So mine is disappointed. And yesterday I was supposed to get a delivery I'd been waiting for a while, and I missed the ring at my door, and I missed the delivery. So felt a little bit disappointed about that.
Thank you, Awakenings team. That was awesome. It was really cool that we all had different ones that we could talk about also. So I appreciate everybody being part of it. The final thing that I want to talk about today is how to integrate more feelings talk into your regular interactions with your kids. So one of the things that I see a lot of the time, or saw a lot of the time in working in home counseling with kids, is that kids might not always be able to recognize what's going on for themselves emotionally, and may not have the words to talk about it, or even just the awareness to talk about it. However, you can learn about what's going on for them, or how they at least conceptualize things through play with them. And so doing little role plays with them with toys, just to get them talking about how people feel, or how, they would handle certain situations, is a great way to get to know what is going on in their own, in their own lives. I'm not at all advocating for, you to be your child's therapist or anything like that. Like, obviously, if there's something serious going on, then do reach out and seek help from a professional. But just to start to incorporate more feelings talk and get your kid talking about their feelings, role play can be a great way to do that. So I've got just these little toys here, and just want to give an example of, even just while you're playing with your kid, which kids also love anyways, just getting that attention from you and getting that time together, and, having you participate in whatever it is that they're doing. But starting to bring up more feeling words as they are at play. So asking them, how did that make your toy feel? Like, how did that make them feel when that happened? Or, what do you think he's feeling right now? And even commenting on it, like I said before, about, trying to label emotions and things like that. So saying, like, if this person just won a game, say, oh, wow, I see that smile on his face. He seems really happy that he just won that game. And trying to incorporate more of that feelings talk with them, so that they feel more comfortable just hearing about feelings and talking about feelings themselves, and starting to try to empathize with others and think about, okay, how might a person feel in this situation? And then they can also apply that to themselves and think about, how might they feel in this kind of situation? So something just as simple as starting to bring up feeling words while you're playing with your kids can have an impact over time, because it's something that you're introducing to them that maybe they haven't been so used to before, and it'll become more comfortable for both you and them over time. So to wrap things up, I want to share a few resources with you that might be helpful in talking to kids about feelings. I love using books for situations like this, where you're introducing a new idea and getting your kid to think about it, getting them to explore a new topic and create their own ideas about it and learn more about it. I just think books are really visually appealing, and there's so many out there that you can find ones that really do speak to each individual child. I did not actually have any go-to books that I typically use for this kind of situation. So I did a little bit of research on the internet to find ones that are well rated on the topic. And so ones that I found, there's one that's called The Feelings Book. There's another that's called The Color Monster. And then something great about, the age that we live in is that you can also often find readings of books online on YouTube. And so I did find an online reading of a book called The Way I Feel. And so that's one that, if you don't want to have to shop for a new book or anything like that, you can find it on YouTube. I'm sure you can find others as well. As always, just make sure that you're checking out whatever video it is first to make sure that the content is appropriate for kids. Other things to note, so I'll be hosting the Zoom discussion group about these activities that I've, talked about today in this video. That discussion group will be on Wednesday afternoon, 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 Central, and I will actually post the link to that Zoom session in the description of this video. So you can find that link there, or anywhere on the social media posts where I'm posting this video. And I will also make sure to post the link to that emotion chart, the free printable one, if you want to use that one. So look for those in the description section of this video. And thanks for checking it out. And I look forward to hearing from you about how these go for you. Bye.